for all stakeholders of an industry that represents real estate's most promising asset class in India. Now in its 10th year, India Shopping Centre Forum 2017 puts a spotlight on building the blueprint for success and the roadmap ahead for the future of the shopping centre industry of India. The theme for India Shopping Centre Forum is the three-way profitability mix for shopping centres in the digital age: retailer engagement, experiential differentiation, and asset management. We begin with two research presentations, the first of which will put the spotlight on what in-demand retail clients want from shopping centres. And to make the presentation, please put your hands together and welcome on stage Mr. Karthik Gurumurthy, Principal, ATKNE. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Karthik Gurumurthy.
Good morning. I'll just start with a small story. And this happened to be one of the discussions which I had with one of the business heads of a leading apparel retailer. And it started with saying, what is it that today's customers want and how do they actually shop? So this is an experience which we saw, wherein a small family, husband, wife, and their son, who is around 12 or 13 years old, walking into a mall. It was going to be his birthday a couple of days from then. We just figured out through the conversations. And the father was actually asking him to get something for his birthday. And the son was completely glued on to his mobile all through this journey in the mall. And some things change in India and some things don't. Beyond a point, the father lost his temper, started shouting at his son, saying, just keep your mobile away. Let's just go to a store and get something. And this boy, beyond a point, he just looked at in the store, and there he could see a small tablet, an iPad. Over there, all the products in the store were actually displayed. And that's the first time he just moved his eyes around the store, apart from just looking at his mobile, which is what he was doing for a very long time. And that's the comfort which this kid saw. Straight away went to the iPad. In 5 minutes or so, he had picked up a t-shirt for himself. And then the father, meanwhile, had just gone around the store, got a customer service representative, and then he said, why don't you talk to this person? And the son was like, no, I don't need to talk to anyone because I've selected my t-shirt. And the father was asking later, saying, why is it that you don't want to talk to a person who can help you out? And the philosophy was very simple. When I know the information which I want and that information is at my fingertips, why is it that I need to speak to someone physically? And this is the world which we are going to be seeing going forward. And this is where the retailers need to be much more flexible and adaptive to what the next generation customers are. And with that theme, I'm actually going to speak to you about how the digital age customer is going to actually behave in a retail format, and how the convergence of online and the offline world will happen, and as a result, how the retailers need to adapt, and eventually the shopping centers and the malls need to provide that kind of a solution. The year 2016, most of you being in the business, would fairly acknowledge that the retail real estate market faced several headwinds. For the first time in this market, we saw that the net supply was probably negative. That's because quite a lot of malls closed down. There were almost close to 15 malls which sort of closed down or were remodeled. And one common thing is that most of these malls were less than 5 lakh square feet, barring a couple of one-off examples. And this trend is also exhibited in the form of what retailers prefer. Almost 40% of the retailers now prefer mall sizes which are greater than 3,50,000 square feet. Almost 20% of the retailers prefer malls which are greater than 5,50,000 square feet. And a recent survey which ATKNE had done with quite a few consumers based out of Mumbai and NCR, almost 95% of the people actually prefer malls which are greater than 3,50,000 square feet. Which just goes to show that increasingly the preference will be for larger spaces, and these spaces will be viewed as a complete entertainment hub as against just a mall as a real estate space. When I was invited to speak at this conference, I also happened to speak to a few of the business heads as well as the business development heads in some of the retail companies as well as F&B companies. And what you actually see is a change in the way companies are actually thinking about shopping centers and malls. Earlier, malls just used to be location. If it was a good location, any retailer would jump into it. But location alone is not going to serve a purpose anymore, for most of them feel that a 4 lakh or a 3 lakh square feet space can be created by anyone else also, and all the investments which the retailer has made in a space eventually gets challenged. Now, what is more important is that all leading retailers feel that the next generation of spaces which they would prefer, at least in some of the large cities, are all going to be big spaces which are going to be at least greater than 5 lakh square feet, because they want the mall and the shopping center as a space which is a complete entertainment package and not just a place for shopping or eating or watching a movie. Interestingly, the malls always offered a lot of functional purposes as well. If you were to look at F&B, the food courts were one of the best innovations which came up around 15 years back when the first few malls were sprawling in the country, because the customer had an option to actually choose a variety of cuisines all in one place. But now, with a lot of hyper-local startups, especially coming in the digital world, this concept is going to get challenged much more. So the functional need of having multiple options for food is going to get challenged much more with the digital innovations which have come up, be it in the form of Swiggies or be it in the form of food pandas. People have options just sitting at home, what a food court earlier offered. As a result, a lot of F&B retailers will have to now move more towards an experiential offering to the customers as against just a functional need. As I've seen this space both from a real estate or a mall developer perspective, as well as working with numerous set of retailers in the country, we see that there are 5 key trends which will actually shape up this entire space. Number one is omnichannel is in a fledgling state today, but it will become larger. The retail will quickly catch on to this concept almost as if a fish to the water, and then the malls and the real estate spaces will have to enable omni-channel customer experience at retail. Number two, malls will become much more of a hub of local community and public entertainment spaces. Malls will no longer be seen only for functional needs. Number three, there has to be a much larger, coordinated and an orchestrated marketing efforts both by the mall developers as well as the retailers to attract footfalls. The onus is not going to be only on one party, but it is going to be a coordinated effort. 4, the healthy and symbiotic pressure to offer best-in-class customer service. There are going to be the basic services which every mall developer needs to offer to the customers, but there are a lot of value-add services which already quite a few malls in India have started offering, which in turn augments the retailer to give a best-in-class experience to customer, and eventually the customer sees that same kind of experience whether he shops online or offline. And last, we see a lot of technology front. On the technology front, we see digital and big data analytics on customer insights to become much more customized and offer solutions to customers which are very, very targeted. So let me speak in detail about each of these trends. As you would see, this is a typical customer buying behavior, consumer buying behavior. It starts with a problem recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, which is the assortment which is available, eventually touch and feel, purchase, reviews, and returns and service. What was a fairly, I would say, a straight movement earlier has almost become much more like a Brownian movement, wherein a consumer has options to switch between the online world and the offline world. Now a consumer would have a Facebook or a YouTube actually speaking about a very specific need based on his profile. There are very, very targeted marketing activities. He in turn would read the reviews on one of the online portals, go to the shop, see the assortment, or probably on an online portal, see the assortment, but still go to a shop to go touch and feel, eventually go and shop online, and then return the product at an offline location. So what is happening is that there is a great amount of convergence which is happening between the offline world and the online world. And as a result, what retailers as well as the shopping spaces need to focus on is to give a seamless experience to the consumer no matter where he is shopping. And of course, some of the largest categories which predominantly are, I would say, the pillars of the business of a mall, we see a lot of e-commerce penetration happening, be it apparel, where we see that the penetration would almost go close to 15 to 20% by the year 2020. Be it FMCG products, where we see the penetrations going up to almost 5%, books and media, and even more consumer electronics. And you can already see that a lot of mobile phones are actually exclusively launched on e-commerce portals. So we see that the e-commerce business would actually start slowly becoming larger in some of the segments. From a survey which we conducted, we see that consumer electronics and books are certainly the top two preferences for customers to shop online more than offline. And this is changing over a period of time. What was a very small share a few years back is started to become larger and larger. Now, what in turn it means to retailers and what in turn it means to the malls? Number one, if you look at the entire consumer buying behavior, there is going to be technology in every stage of his buying process. There are omni-channel presence at every stage when the consumer takes a call. Right from the product search and trials, you would have concepts like endless aisles, which will be put into the retail stores, when the consumers will have an option to choose a much larger assortment and not just the assortment which is present in the store. This in turn would also mean that a lot of retailers would move eventually to a place wherein the best-selling products will be the products which will be kept in the store, but there will be a larger assortment which will be kept in the digital scope, and every consumer will have the option to pick that. And even if a product is not present physically in the store, what was earlier considered as a lost sale will no longer be considered, because the consumer will have the option just to go and pick that product, and that product will be delivered to him in no time. You will have concepts like virtual mirror, wherein the consumer can actually try different products, not by actually physically testing it on, but just holding it with him and then seeing how does it look on him. And you will also have a lot of virtual customizations, wherein some of the leading retailers in India, for example, a leading apparel retailer, they ask you a set of 15 to 20 questions, and based on the data which they have collated over a period of time, they actually suggest the kind of products which the consumer would most likely prefer. What does this mean in turn to the retailers and shopping centers? Retailers will start adapting their entire spaces to support both omni-channel as well as offline. This in turn would mean that malls and shopping centers would need to focus much more on having these designs which can support the store designs, which can support both the online as well as the offline purchase. We don't see this happening immediately, but in certain developed markets, store size rationalization has already started happening. As the consumer would have an option to prefer products which are the best-selling products, and he would actually try it out in the store. A lot of products which are the larger assortment, stores would move it in a much more digital way, and as a result, we see over a long period of time, store size rationalization as well as the store designs to change to eventually accommodate both the online and the offline ways of purchasing. There is also a trend which has slowly started, which is entry of online players into offline retail. We see some of the leading online retailers like Zivame, Lenskart, Myntra, Pepperfry. Each of these guys have slowly started setting up their offline retail spaces. What does this have as an implication? The store will no longer be viewed just as a retail space. The store will also be viewed as an inventory point, because the hyper-local concept is going to scale up significantly. What is going to happen is that the store will also be viewed as a point wherein a stock is present. And if the consumer doesn't get that in the store, in some other store, the stock is going to be moved from one particular store to the consumer's house or to the other store in no time. So there'll be an endless view of the inventory, and every store would start to be viewed also as an inventory and a stocking point. The time which the consumer spends in a store, these are going to come down more and more, because what is going to happen is a lot of consumers would now do the searches online. The entire process of assortment picking, as well as a lot of options and the reviews which they traditionally used to pick it in the offline world from a customer service representative, is all going to move to the online world. As a result, the time which the consumer spends in a store is going to go lesser and lesser. Be it whether the information search or the actual purchasing process, wherein once the consumer buys a product, there aren't going to be long waiting queues for cash payments or your bill payments, because it's all going to be integrated with the online world, wherein you can just pick a product, it just moves to the shopping cart, and then the product is eventually going to be delivered to your home. What leads to this is that the consumer today doesn't have time. And this is the new age consumer which we are speaking of, wherein the information is available very, very quick. And as a result, the implication on the mall is again going to be that the store designs are going to change. There has to be infrastructure in every mall as well as in the store to support the e-commerce logistics, because you will start seeing stores also as an inventory and a stocking point. There are going to be seamless product returns and replacements. Already Flipkart is one of the companies which has set up the Flipkart experience zones. There are going to be lockers which are going to be set up, wherein consumers can seamlessly interact with the online world, and whatever product returns or replacements as well as the service which they need on the products, they can eventually go and put it in the locker. So these are new spaces which are going to emerge out, and the malls will have to appropriately design and zone them. We see that the traditional ways in which the mall used to operate was just eat, dine, and watch a movie. And this used to be the caption for a lot of malls. This used to be the logo or the unique selling proposition. This is going to get challenged again, because the entire options, the functional needs are just available in your mobile, right? As we speak of it, I can pick up my entire grocery by shopping on Big Basket or Grofers. I can have my entire set of food options just by using a Swiggy or a Foodpanda. And with Amazon Prime and Netflix, as well as Hotstar expanding, I have most of the movies on my fingertips. Now, so all these functional needs are going to get challenged over a period of time. And traditionally, this is what malls used to offer. So what we see is that the malls, next generation malls, will need to become a much more of a community hub with a host of entertainment options. Fact of the matter is, we have a dearth of public entertainment spaces in India. We don't have parks, we don't have entertainment spaces for kids like we get in international countries. But in India, this is what is going to shape up in the future, when people will start viewing malls as a complete entertainment hub and also as a complete community hub. And this community hub will be in the form of festival celebrations, will be an informal meet of like-minded people. You already see these concepts in F&B retailers. For example, social is a very good concept which has caught up really well. And you will also see spaces, for example, if you go to Powai today and you see that one of the biggest startup hubs is actually the Starbucks in Powai. And these are spaces which the malls will need to start offering, such that the communities will be built up. There will also be a huge amount of unique entertainment avenues, music concerts, adventure and sports, experience zones. And these are some of the concepts which have already taken off really well in malls internationally, and we see that this will percolate as well to the malls in India. The viewpoint earlier was that malls and retailers, once it was almost a handshake, wherein once the malls used to sell the space to retailers, the onus was completely on the retailers to attract the footfalls. There used to be a lot of marketing efforts, but those marketing efforts would go up and the expectations from retailers would go up. Again, comparing to the e-commerce world, there's a big billion day, the Great Indian Sale in Amazon. This is a place wherein all the sellers get together and there is a lot of marketing effort by, I would say, the virtual mall, which is an Amazon or a Flipkart, to get in all the sellers and offer the best deals to the customers. And this is what will happen much more in the offline world as well. And already we have started seeing this when the entire mall is on 50% discount or the 40% discount. There's a much collaborated and a coordinated effort from malls and retailers to attract footfalls. This manifests in the form of the marketing budgets for most of the malls slowly going up over a period of time. And the marketing effort will not just be in terms of discounts to customers, but it will span across the entire spectrum, starting from all the above-the-line activities, partnerships with financial institutions, on-ground activations, and create a festive kind of an atmosphere such that the footfalls on those days go up. So the marketing efforts are seriously going to go up as a much coordinated and a collaborated effort. The basic services in the malls have become an hygiene factor, and when we conducted a survey very recently with a lot of consumers, and it comes out very clear that almost 60% of the consumers would prefer not to go to a mall if the basic amenities are not provided. And parking turns out to be one of the sore points with most of the consumers in India, right? What we see is also that the next generation of value-add services which will be provided to the consumers, which is more so an extended arm of what the retailers could have provided. Concepts which have taken off internationally really well is for anchor tenants, you have integration with public transportation. So if you go to countries like Singapore or in Europe, you would see that the public transportation or there is a dedicated mall transportation between the largest anchor stores and the public transport spots. You would also see services like hands-free shopping, delivery to home, just to bring in the entire scale which a mall can provide across to all the retailers. And one of the largest features which we see is the loyalty program. Historically, loyalty programs have more been seen as discounts to end consumers, and this philosophy will change. If you look at Amazon Prime, it's a very good example, wherein a loyalty program is not meant for giving discounts, but it is giving more value-add services. So all the value-add services which are present in malls, for example, valet parking, free car wash, bag and shoe repair, these are different kind of services. These will be integrated with the mall loyalty program such that the malls eventually say that the customers who keep visiting the mall again and again, as well as to retain the same set of customers, these value-added services will be provided, and it is not just in the form of discounts. Finally, there's going to be a lot of technology intervention, social media engagement. A lot of malls have already done this. Each of them have dedicated websites, but there will be a lot of big data analytics which will be done on the customer data. The customer who registers through a Facebook or a Gmail, you have the location available, you have a lot of cases, his contacts and references available. And what is going to happen is that this will get integrated, wherein the malls will start doing a much more targeted marketing effort with each of the customers. Internationally, a lot of these philosophies have already started happening. You will also have VR, the virtual reality philosophies to build in, wherein even now when you go to a mall, a simple philosophy is a mall directory. In some cases it's a digital mall directory, but you will have apps for the entire mall layout, as well as the virtual reality philosophy coming in, wherein you will be able to visualize how do you exactly move in the mall. Some of the international malls have already started doing it. More value-add services, concepts like parking assistance using mobile app, getting to know the exact locations, these will all be integrated on your mobile applications. Virtual storefronts, few of these concepts have already started happening in India. A lot of digital marketing effort will move on from the traditional hoarding spaces into a virtual storefront, which will look like, which will create a much more dynamic content on an ongoing basis. A Roadster store in Bangalore is a very good example. And finally, you will also have a lot of real-time customer redressals, wherein you will have bots, you will have customer service bots, wherein any kind of queries which customers have can be resolved through technology. So we see a huge amount of technology which will be leveraged much more by malls and shopping centers in the future, wherein a customer would almost have the same kind of experience as what he gets online, even in the offline world. Now, the onus is completely on the malls and shopping centers to start thinking that how will this retail shape up in the next few years, and in turn, how is it that all of these technology as well as the e-commerce intervention needs to be sort of amalgamated with the current offline setup. And we see a few of these already starting in India, and over the next 4 to 5 years, you will see a complete blend of these features. Thank you.
We have time for a couple of questions, very quick questions. So if anybody would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. We'll have a mic passed on to you.
Good morning and thank you for a great presentation. I just want to know this, how are these taxi aggregators now playing a big role in reducing the need of parking space? You know, earlier we knew that parking space was very important, and you said it's a very big hygiene factor. So I just want you to tell me something about these taxi aggregators, how they're in huge demand in the metros, and how they will help the mall in reducing the parking space.
Yeah, this we are seeing this fairly significant, because the taxi aggregators will eventually create a need wherein you don't need to have a lot of parking spaces. There are still concepts of surge in demand, and the prices are still not getting rational on that particular space. What internationally we have seen in a lot of places is that there is a tie-up sometimes even between the mall developers and eventually the parking, some of the cab aggregators, wherein you pick it up from the mall, a specific location, and you would not see an artificial surge in prices. Now, once these concepts start getting integrated much more, then you would start seeing that the demand for eventually people using their own cars and then coming to the malls will start going down. As of now, it is still not fully developed, but over a period of time, we see that coming down.
My name is Deva. I represent Kalpataru. One of the slides shows that 55% of the visitors come to watch a movie. Just needed some light on that. Some light on that.
Yeah. So this is a survey which we had conducted, and what actually shows is, and this is something which we have been doing over a period of time, wherein we have been understanding why does a consumer actually visit a mall, right? And earlier we had seen a fairly healthy mix between the three options, which is watching a movie, shopping, as well as dining, right? And also doing any of the two activities. There was a fairly healthy mix. What we have seen over a period of time is that the options, especially what the mall offers, and which is what I alluded to earlier, which is purely in terms of the functional needs, are being served much more in the digital world. As a result, the main reason why we see a customer today visiting a mall is actually coming mainly for a movie. Right? And the shopping and the dining experience is coming down over a period of time. Even the dining options, if I were to speak of, options which are much more a full service restaurant or a fine dining option, that is going up within the eating options. But overall, if I were to see, if 30% of the customers used to come earlier for eating in a mall or for dining in a mall, along with that, they would watch a movie. Now, the preference of the customer is actually changing, wherein they just come purely for a functional need of watching a movie alone, but combining any other activity along with that is coming down. Now, what is the implication of this? The eventual average bill value which the customer would end up spending, and as a result, the time which the customer ends up spending in a mall is going down. And that is one of the main reasons why we feel that a lot of entertainment options needs to be packaged along with what a mall offers today, or else the traditional offerings are no longer appealing to the consumers, especially in metros.
Hi, you mentioned in one of your slides that there is a trend online retailers are moving to setting up an offline store. Is it purely because of the stock point of view, or is it also to establish more credibility amongst their customer base? Because we have seen in most of the online retailers, they're doing pretty well online. But in order to upgrade and get people to buy more higher price point products, they face a challenge. And we have also seen that there is a customer mentality in India that they find a brick and mortar store more credible than an offline store. That was also one of the reasons why cash on delivery picked up in Indian market. So what's your view on that?
Sure. Very good question. From an online retailer perspective, the reason why they are setting up stores is not from a stock point perspective. That's more an implication of what will happen. From an online retailer's perspective, the reason why they are setting up stores, and most of these categories are the ones which are fairly high involvement in purchase. So you would never see a grocery retailer ever going to an offline kind of a commerce. But categories which are much more high involvement, example, furniture purchase or the lingerie purchase or apparel purchase, these are much more high involvement categories. Online retailers feel that they need to create an offline presence so that the customer actually gets an opportunity to touch and feel and eventually try it on, and reduce the overall buying process timelines. In an online world, it is still much larger. Categories wherein customer wants the need to be satiated immediately, online world still struggles in that space. And that is the reason why online retailers are setting that up. How does the implications of those, will it happen in categories like food and grocery? We don't see that happening, right? In food and grocery, the other way which will actually scale up is hyper-local as a concept will scale up much more than the online retailers coming and setting it up. In categories which are much more high involvement and the customer need to be satiated immediately, there we feel that these online retailers would set up much more of offline presence also, but the buying process over there in that store will still be very different from a conventional offline, because what will happen is you would have a lot of search which was done already online. You would just come to the store, pick the product, try it out through each of those concepts like endless aisles and virtual mirror, and put the product in your shopping cart and check out, wherein you will not be physically carrying out that product. So these kind of interventions will eventually change the way in which the stores will get designed, and eventually the store footprint we also see will start coming down over a period of time.
So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Karthik Gurumurthy for a very incisive presentation, a very good way to open it.